Thank you for being with us today. Again, my beautiful audience. And oh my God, you have no idea what surprise I have for you. And actually, I believe this is very, very, very honorable, very special person, very special guest. I was looking forward so many weeks. And actually, I don't want to be anti-equal. I love all my guests equally. But because I believe this guy, how can possibly he can find time for me in his schedule? But I'm so happy now that he also shared that he is not just working 24/7, and because he's this huge advanced brain muscle, but he also has something for his soul. And we already know, and you have no idea, I will open this secret very, very soon. So welcome to another episode. Diversity is the game changer. And today we are, me and we all together, incredibly honored to have with us an extraordinary leader who's really, really diversified. Just wait for that. Soon as John is Pearl coming, who has dedicated his career to shaping the future of health equity and social change. And his name is John Gorman. Welcome to the show.
Thank you, Valeria. It's a joy to be here. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And the founder and chairman of Nightingale Partners, the first venture fund focused on early stage companies in the social determinants of health ecosystem. So John has been a trailblazer in transforming healthcare systems and advocating for underserved communities. If I don't say something correctly or pronounce, because then you should correct me. I love constructive criticism. I don't even call it criticism because, English language is, in my head, it's language number 4.
Yeah.
It's not what I'm using actually.
I know.
Now, yes, like PhD writing, but then it's written language. It's a little bit different, right?
Absolutely.
Anyway, I don't want to open all the gems, but I already know he's so diversified. We have been talking just 5 minutes. I already got the information. I was like, wow. But I'm still have more intro about your professional career first.
Thank you.
So with the career spanning over 2 decades from strategic leadership at Gorman Health Group to high impact advisory roles, many of them, and speaking engagements at national conferences, he has built a legacy rooted in governance, health equity, and the pursuit of inclusive solutions for all. Thank you so, so much for being you, for you do you, like your Americans say. I love that, because when I'm come to Norway back and said you do you, they're like, what?
They
But
don't
now I
understand
know
that.
so many times. Yes, now and it's so funny because first time also when we had photo shoot in New York, like, okay, Valeria, you do you. I was like, what should I do with me? Okay, anyway,
It's a
thank
funny
you so
saying.
much. Thank you again for giving us the most precious commodity we have, your time.
My pleasure.
So let's jump. Actually, immediately, I know you are so prominent leader. I can imagine how many times you've been staying and talking about important, critically important subject you have been devoting all your life. But I want actually to maybe shift angle of not my show, because my show still, it's actually, I do believe so much in storytelling, that one storytelling, one like specified story, one person can make really, really big ripple effect. Like, the generalization, it's very nice stuff, but I wanted to talk to you behind all these accolades, thousands of accomplishments. I want to know behind that. It was one time a little boy named Johnny, right? Johnny?
Yeah.
Yeah. And we all start from our childhood, right? And this impact, we know very well that we carry the whole life with us, and the mindset and upbringing. Yes, this train, it's always we taking this train. Sometimes we need to change where to take this train in our heads, all these highways. But I want you to welcome us to the kingdom or imagination world of little Johnny. Tell us about your childhood and how do you believe this childhood impact your choices and mindset in your adulthood. Thank you so much. Welcome.
My pleasure. Thank you. Well, I grew up in Detroit, Michigan, Motor City, or Motown, as we like to call it here in the States.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and the son of two doctors. My mother was the probably my greatest influence, and we'll talk about her, I'm sure, quite a bit on this. But she was the first female emergency room chief in the U.S. At the time, and so we lived in right downtown in Detroit,
Mm-hmm.
in the housing projects, so that she could walk to work at the hospital. So I was one of, when you count my siblings, we were the only white kids in about a 5 mile radius in Detroit, or it felt that way as we were growing up. And it was an amazing place to grow up, because it was a black city that was in the late 60s when I was born, and in the early 70s as I was growing up, was the hub of the music world, especially in like 1971, 72. Motown Records was booming, and we lived a matter of blocks from Motown Studios. And some of my earliest memories are my mother cooking breakfast in, her dressing gown, and listening to Diana Ross and the Supremes, or driving down West Grand Avenue in the back seat of, her big Chrysler, and seeing all these beautiful black artists in their suits and dresses out on the front lawn of Hitsville, which was, the studio at Motown Records. And, you know, my first job was sweeping up hair in a black barber shop when I was 6 or 7, and because that was the safest place in the neighborhood to go to. So it was a very rich place to grow up, but it was very much fish out of water for kids like us, because there just weren't that many white kids around that were living in downtown Detroit. The white flight started happening right after the riots, when Dr. King was assassinated. And so it was a very interesting place to grow up, and you had to learn. Well, one, you saw the power of diversity firsthand, and you saw the incredible things that black and brown people were capable of, and that by no means did white people have a monopoly on creativity or brilliance or skill in anything, especially in medicine, where I was directly exposed with my parents as doctors. So Detroit was a wonderful place to grow up. And then we moved to the Boston area
Mm-hmm.
for my mother's work, and that was like the absolute opposite end of the
Yeah, I can
spectrum,
imagine.
because there was a city that didn't have nearly as much diversity, and very, very different cultures between Boston and Detroit. It'd be like the difference between Manchester, England, and Malaga, Spain. Very, very, very different places. So, I think we learned very early the importance of being able to get along with everybody, the importance of seeing past color and cultural barriers, and to be able to see people for who they are and what they bring to the table. That mutual respect is often repaid when given, especially if you're a white person approaching people of color, and you treat them with dignity and respect. You get that in return. And I had the benefit of a multicultural upbringing that way. That was wonderful. And I was the oldest of our 4 kids. So, when my parents divorced when I was 7,
Mm-hmm.
my childhood ended pretty quickly, and I became the man of the house. And so, all those things I think were very important in kind of shaping who I was and how I approached the world as an adult. And but for me, I'm the only member of my family practically who's not a doctor. They all say I'm the smart one for not having gone to med school and gone through all of that. But I stayed in healthcare and got involved in it politically and from a policy standpoint.
Yeah.
And then in operations, as I worked for President Clinton, and then as a businessman. And so I've been in healthcare for 35 years now, and just kind of happened to fall into it as a professional career. I went to school as a journalist,
Okay.
and was a reporter. And then the night before I was to graduate from college, my old hometown congressman from Detroit called up and said, I need a press secretary. I see
Okay.
you're a journalist. Would
Uh-huh.
you come to Washington and handle the media for me? And that's what started my career here in Washington 35 years ago.
Oh my God, thank you so much. It was so interesting. I knew that kind of our show can turn any possible cool direction because of how we started before the show. And my audience, we can open later a little bit your activity which you shared before the show record button, but that it was so diversified that, oh my God, yes, basically you've been like the one white guy between all these beautiful black people, right? And of course it, how we call it, I made it so that you were taking the beauty of diversity already with your mother's milk, kind of, right?
Yeah.
And you
Yeah.
saw it.
Very
And
much.
yes, pretty much. And because I love those, my best friends all over the world. Mrs. Like, okay, Mrs. No, yes, because when we presented at Mrs. World, so Mrs. Nigeria is like first minute we bound it. We call us twins. Like, every, can't you see we are twins? They're like, oh yes, we are twins. Different fathers. No, 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 same mother, same father. But
Yeah.
actually, it's funny because I can send you a picture after. We have different color, but kind of even complexion and the feature of our faces.
Sure.
It's amazing. And now also I have all these beautiful people. And for me, I was brought up in Soviet and in Ukraine. I'm proud Ukrainian, but at the southern part, there also I almost never experienced that. When I moved to Kiev first time, I was like, oh, and I was always
Yeah.
like, I was fascinated that people, there are so many different people, different cultures, different languages. Those it was not encouraged for us, right, at school when it was Soviet Union. It was kind of way to learn us like English that we could never communicate, right? So it was,
Right.
but I always wonder why not? It's so interesting when we are also different, right?
Yes.
So I can
Absolutely.
imagine for you in Motown, I could read about like first time probably I could hear when I read about Michael Jackson book, right, and about Jackson's Five, how big
Yes.
it was, and Diana Ross, of course, and it was very interesting, right? So thank you so much for sharing. So of course, and in your mom, I kind of can already hear that the big nose that your mom, like it's so cool because now you use this modern world like influencer. Now it's cool, yeah, because this is basically your role model, right? So with
Yes.
how language you see how we actually put in context, now it's influencer. It's cool. Because my mom, she was also and still my influencer. She's refugee now with me because of situation in Ukraine. And
Yes.
this
And by the way, my entire family is from Odessa, both sides of my family. So
no
yes,
way.
we are Ukrainian Jews and Holocaust survivors. And yes, absolutely.
That's why I really when and I don't know when I could read your profile on LinkedIn. There are so many people, but somehow like
I have cousins fighting.
yeah,
I have cousins that are fighting the Russians right now while we speak.
yeah, exactly. Because
So it's
then
very close.
even then we even close because I'm from Kherson, which is close
Sure.
to Odessa, and
Yeah.
then all my friends, I don't have siblings, or I have one mom. She has adopted one girl my age, but also all my friends. Many of them, they even couldn't leave the country. They didn't want. They stay in there, and I check up every
Yeah.
single day on them. So
Well, I
okay,
hope
so
they
they're
stay.
actually kind of we are motherland relatives. That's why, yes,
Yes.
amazing. So wow, now I have so many questions. But okay, back to the topic because I know you have hard stop. So you already kind of walked us inside smoothly to your career, And yes, you already told that it was journalism and how you were approached by this Detroit gentleman, and you start this. And then could you tell us how more and more kind of your career yeah, began to be shaped into healthcare, and how actually maybe because you already moved from one place to another place, you
Yeah,
already experienced and understood what actually diversity, because of also that we are so diverse. But I understood that maybe you can notice that the culture different, the approach to people different, and what was your in the beginning personal opinion and approach to diversity, then equality and inclusion? How, because I know that's for sure from your career you want to be advocate to unite people.
sure,
Tell
sure.
me your personal
I
aspect.
mean, it was diversity. I think always just came very naturally to me because that was how I grew up. All my
Mhm.
friends were different color than I was. Um, I played in bands as a drummer since I was young, and I always had bandmates that looked differently than I was and had completely different backgrounds, but we all had fun together and we all valued each other's contributions to what we were doing, even in our little garage band when I was 12 or 13.
Was
Um,
your first love, sorry, I teach in myself not to interrupt, but I have to interrupt now. I promised last time. Was your first love also black girl?
in fact, yes, and
Ah,
my wife is black,
oh
and
my
we have
god, so
we have
cool.
beautiful mixed daughters, and yeah, absolutely. So that was my whole aesthetic, especially for women was, just from the very early age, that's what I was exposed to, and I just found women of color to just be beautiful and sensual and just offered from my perspective a whole lot more of that was interesting than the few white girls I had experience with back when I was younger.
Mhm.
But then in the Boston area, it was completely different, and a completely different population that was much whiter, much more Irish. Um, but we lived in a town called Lowell outside of Boston that was actually very much Hispanic and
Mhm.
Southeast Asian. There were when the Vietnam boat lift occurred, and you had lots of folks from Thailand and Vietnam and Cambodia and Laos that fled to the U.S.
Mhm.
Many of them came to Lowell, and almost overnight, 1/3 of the city became Southeast Asian. So yet again, we had this amazing influx of diversity, and all of a sudden we had these fascinating new restaurants popping up and temples and kids in school that had interesting experiences and things to talk about. So I just always found that stuff interesting. I never saw diversity as a threat to my whiteness or anything like that, like so many people in this country do today.
Yeah.
Um, and I just always found it as a strength. And then as my mother opened her medical practice, um, she hired only women doctors and as her partners, and most of her staff were women of color, and they
Mhm.
were all amazing. But my mother was also, a real humanitarian, and so she was on the first wave of medical personnel into Chernobyl, and
Oh my god.
she
Oh no.
ran refugee camps in Macedonia during the Bosnia War, and she worked in Sean Penn's camps in Haiti after the earthquake, and she was on the first wave of folks into Fukushima after the meltdown. And her idea of retirement, Valeria, was to run the biggest AIDS orphanage in South Africa for 6 years. So my mother, was a huge influence that way. And then, my first job was, as I mentioned, for Congressman John Conyers from Detroit,
Mhm.
who was a hero of the civil rights movement. And so here I was coming out of Oberlin College, out of a very liberal arts college,
Mhm.
to go to work for a hero of the civil rights movement. That was pretty exciting, and I got to
Oh.
do all of his press work. So I had to, write in his voice and be able to speak in his voice, which was was great. And then a year after that, I was his chief of staff. I'd gotten promoted, and this was in the very early 90s. So it was like 1990, 91. Health reform was just becoming a major topic in our politics here in the US.
Okay.
And the congressman walked into my office one day and he said, John, I really want to lead the Congressional Black Caucus on healthcare. I want to make sure all the Black members of Congress are lined up behind reform of our healthcare system, and I want to be that guy. And I said, well, Congressman, I don't know a thing about healthcare. And he said, John, that's bullshit. He's like, you've forgotten more in 18 years of dinner time conversation with a family of doctors than any of us will ever learn.
Exactly.
So you're the chief of staff. This is my priority. You're doing healthcare. And that was it. I just got thrown right into it. And 2 years later, I was running President Clinton's campaign in Michigan.
Mm-hmm.
And when President Clinton won, he appointed me to our big health agency to basically start a new office of managed care for Medicare, which is our health program for the elderly, and for Medicaid, which is our health program for poor people and for the disabled. And that put me right square into it. I was 24 years old, and my office had an $89 billion portfolio. And that only happens in Washington, D.C., where someone that young and inexperienced can get thrown into a job like that. And that was like drinking out of a fire hose, Valeria, but I learned fast.
I bet you had to. Oh,
yeah,
wow.
It was a quick study.
Whew. Give me, yes, okay. Okay, I'm not in hot country, I'm cold, but I'm still getting. Yeah, thank you so. Oh, wow, this is to say it's impressive. It's like saying nothing, right? So,
well, thank you.
Jeff,
But I mean, to your point, the cool thing about it was that I was the first white chief of staff for the senior Black member of Congress, and that was a big deal at the time. In fact, I got a call from Jesse Jackson, who you may know, another civil rights leader, who's an asshole, by the way, who called Conyers up to complain that he had appointed a white kid as chief of staff. And the congressman was on the floor for a vote, so I had to take Jesse Jackson's call complaining about my appointment. So, I've been on both sides of this diversity issue, and like to think I know it well. And it was always a priority in my career that I have people of different views and perspectives and lived experience around me, because I think it made me smarter, and it made me a better listener, and it made me have a broader experience to speak from in healthcare. I mean, Valeria, I think you only need to look at the white men running America right now to realize that diversity is an absolute must. I mean, all we're seeing is like an embarrassment on a daily basis by these failed white guys running the United States right now, from Trump on down. I mean, you've got a defense secretary that's leaking war plans on unsecured apps. We just implemented an economy-killing slate of tariffs yesterday, which everybody knows don't work. We've known that for over 100 years, and yet these white guys here are putting this failed stuff back in practice and wrecking our economy in the process. We've seen the most racist, fascist regime in American history take over at the hands of these white Christian guys. And I think this is just a lesson for the world in what happens when you throw diversity, equity, inclusion out the window, and how bad decisions get made as a result of having one point of view on everything. Does that make sense?
I totally agree. For me, it's horse uplifting how it even can be possible in 21st century. Like sometimes when I wake up and can listen the news about Trump, it's like, are we living in surreal world?
I
What's
know it's,
wake
and
me
I
up?
live here in Washington. We're living this every day. I
Wake me
mean,
up. I'm Ukrainian, and you also, like, now I know you, and like, what's happening now? The world, like, it's delusional, it's
yeah,
surreal. What's going on? And for me, it was, I'm totally on your side because I was invited to conduct them interview on New York Stock Exchange. It was Valentine's Day about diversity and neurodiversity and the role of diversity, equity, inclusion in, of course, our society, and battling worldwide challenges like climate change, like all advocating for all sustainability goals, right? So, which,
sure.
of course, concern of every countries in the world besides American, but not
Yeah,
American, thanks, not American people, but and it was so fun or maybe tragical because it was 14th of February. It's supposed to be like this love's day, right? Valentine's Day. And I was like, because it's a serious channel, and the subject of my interview has been pre-scheduled, like, in advance, of course. And I wrote, and it was like official scheme that it's DEI. I'm writing PhD about diversity management, how it should be more effectively managed to leverage the benefits of DEI. And I was sitting and checking my email before flying across over the ocean, that when they should cancel it, because DI backlash like happened like this. And I
yeah,
said, okay, they will not allow me to talk about that. And all many friends, actually, because my podcast Diversity is Game Changer, you have no idea how many people they now so scared they say no. And I'm so proud of you because you said, of course, yes, let's talk about it.
yeah.
Because I believe we even more now have to raise our voice against what's happening every single day for
I
our
agree.
kids and for ourselves.
Yeah,
And when actually I remember I got the message from fintech. It was fintech channel, right? And like, Valeria, some changes in your, I said, oh my god, it came. But no, it was just they postpone a little bit because it's alive, right? And it's Valentine's Day, maybe something happened. And when I arrived there, so I kind of, so funny because it was 4 person, and I said, I don't know, maybe I'm doing something criminal here, but I'm going actually to talk about this subject. I'm going to use these words and to use this DEI, and I'm going to advocate that yes, this is even more important now, and I'm going to criticize what not you guys, but what's happened. And then they were like, okay, it's okay. I was
yeah.
like, wow, I was so surprised. So for me, it's like, it's hilarious, it's crazy. Like you
It's
said,
crazy.
this night, and for us, Europe, it was 10 minutes. America lost $3 trillion. It's like,
Yeah, in
how?
one night.
In one night, in
In
10.
one night.
It's like, it's, yeah. Oh
Yeah,
wow.
that's what happens when you only have one type of person
Blind
in the
thinking.
room
Yes, it's totally
making
blind thinking.
decisions.
It's exactly the subject I'm studying, and because my study is very empirical, I'm conversating like with you, the brightest brain muscles, yeah, in the nations. And then they say, of course, DEI, it's undeniable part, undeniable.
Yeah.
We're so collected, we are so global. How it's like, but anyway, because you see, it's my passion as well, but it's not the subject of my show. So I will be I start engaging so I can actually speak continuously, but now I want you to talk. So but um that's a little bit I would like our audience to study a little bit about healthcare in the US, because I know my mom, she used to live in Texas, and I'm traveling back and forth, so
Uh,
I kind of know about health system. And for me, it's still kind of puzzle how it's the only one nation, like it's still um universal healthcare system, right?
right.
Because in Norway, where I live now, we have totally, like, on
Oh,
a
absolutely. And
approach.
one of the happiest countries in the world as a result.
because we have these very strong institutions, it's like, you know, it's school, it's medical healthcare, right? And I'm so grateful because I have adopted two kids with special needs. I could never raise them in another country, how I'm in healthcare. And now I have two refugees, two elderly people with cancer, all that stuff, the same. But in America, I know it's a huge problem. So I'm so happy when I was reading your bio, like everything you have been engaged, but and still do a lot and boldly a lot. So I want you, because we know US healthcare system has faced several key challenges throughout history, right? And we know
Yes.
the was one of more persistent challenges has been ensuring equitable access, right? It's the huge to healthcare for all
Yeah.
Americans, especially like African Americans, Native Americans, we know, right?
Sure.
So I mean, like particularly under a third population, they still hurt because of that. So,
Yeah.
so tell me, please, now about your career, your engagement. You have your fund. You have your very important venture fund. Can you please tell us what you through your career has been achieved? And I can imagine if you did 24 years, you already get that. So now I understand how it's possible. You look so young and you could make all these achievements, because in the beginning it didn't make sense. You
I'm almost 60.
stuck in the nursery school.
I'm almost 60. So
No, 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 no. You
I've got
know
the
something.
scars on my backside, Valeria, of a man twice my age, because I made a lot of mistakes in my career and learned from them. But I think that's also a very important thing you can take away from diversity, is that, you know, making mistakes or having people correct your thought or your vision for something, and to be open to alternative points of view, I think is critical to anybody's successful career. Um, you know, it's only when you live in an echo chamber like Trump does that you make big, stupid decisions like we're seeing here in the United States
Mm-hmm,
on a daily basis.
mm-hmm,
But for me, you know, to go then from Capitol Hill, which is a very diverse workplace, working for the senior Black member of Congress, to then working for President Clinton in what was then the most diverse administration in history at that point, um, and to work for Donna Shalala, a woman who was our health secretary at the time, in a very diverse federal agency that had, you know, fully a third of the employees at my agency at the Centers for Medicare and Medicaid Services were Black, and were my first boss of my office was Black, Dr. Rodney Armstead.
mm-hmm,
So it's something that I was always very used to. It felt very normal to me. Whenever I was in a room with just other white people, it just didn't feel right, and I didn't feel like we were getting, you know, the best and the most complete perspectives on the decisions that we were making. And when I left the administration after 3 years to start my companies, the first guy I hired was Black, Glenn Ellerby, um, and then as we built our consulting company in Gorman Health Group, I found without question that the best consultants I was hiring were women in their 50s and 60s, and that they had the most incredible lived experience in the work that we were doing,
mm-hmm.
that they were the most dedicated people to the work, that they just had a very balanced perspective on life. They were kind of lone wolves in that they could get their job done on their own, but they played well with others and they collaborated exceptionally well. And so when I sold the company after 23 years,
Mm-hmm.
we had about 600 consultants, and I
Oh,
would say probably 70% of 75% of them were women over 50. And you know, we were the best in the business at what we did. So you know, this kind of stuff has always just come very naturally to me. And it was only when Trump came around in 2016
mm-hmm.
and this war on diversity started that I really kind of felt compelled to go out and speak on this stuff a lot more, because my experience says that diversity is good for business. It's not just good, it's essential for good business decisions. And that it's been a part of how I've always worked, and that's what I'm comfortable with. And I'm not afraid to say it, that, you know, having just people of your complexion surrounding you and giving you advice and helping guide your career and your decisions is never good for business. You always have to have varying perspectives on stuff, different lived experience. And I see that especially in healthcare, Valeria, because among all the industrialized countries, of course, America is the only one that does not have universal healthcare. And that is, you know, that's the most equitable thing that you can do in any society, is to make sure all of your citizens have quality healthcare. We don't do that here. And the folks that most often don't have it are Black and brown people and lower income white people. And what we're seeing now with this administration is we had 2 decades of great progress on covering more people with health insurance in the United States, thanks to Obamacare, and thanks to the laws and funding that President Biden passed after it. But now you see Trump coming in here just wrecking the whole thing and taking a meat axe to Medicaid, which is our huge program for lower income people in this country. He's trying to cut Medicaid by as much as 30%. And, you know, this is a program that insures over 90 million Americans. 1 out of 4 Americans is on Medicaid, and he's cutting almost as much as 30% of this program to try to fund his tax cut for billionaires. So, you know, all that's going to do is to make health equity much, much worse. I mean, my projection is that if this guy gets done what he wants to get done, that we're going to have 40 million more uninsured people in this country when this term is over. And that's going backwards. This guy just wants to take us backward to the 50s, you know, when we still had segregation and Black people couldn't use white water fountains, and we didn't have Medicaid or Medicare for our elderly, and poor people and people of color were just dying in the streets. And that's what this guy wants to take us back to. So, you know, for me, especially in healthcare, what we see is that care gets better the more diverse it is, especially for diverse patients. Black people get the best and highest quality healthcare from other Black doctors. And we see wherever you have Black and brown physicians at serious numbers in a community practicing, that you see health equity is far better, and that discrimination in healthcare is much less, and that Black people get treated much more closely to the way that white people do. And Black folks get pain medications almost as often as white people do, because that's a huge healthcare disparity in this country. It's like a lot of white doctors just think Black people can take more pain, or they just disregard Black patients in pain as much as they would a white person exhibiting the same symptoms. So, you know, everywhere I look, diversity makes things better. And we're at a moment in this country right now where we're going backwards, and they're celebrating it, Valeria. They're like, this anti-DEI stuff it's just, and it's disgusting to me. And then you put these, you know, these absolute failures like Pete Hegseth, a drunk I'd like to call him a DUI hire, a drunk white Christian guy at the head of the greatest murder force on the planet, and he's giving our secrets away because he's such an idiot. Let me just tell you, if that guy had a Black woman as his chief of staff, none of that shit would have happened. He would have slapped him upside his head and said, "Are you stupid or something? No. And that's what diversity brings you, is it gets you out of sycophants and people saying, oh yeah, you're right because you look like me. And it gets people to challenge your worldview and your decisions and your perspectives. And that's what makes everything better. Right?
Oh yes, absolutely. I even don't know where to start. That's why I really wanted just to devotedly listen to you, because I'm on your side with all my fibers, like with all my molecules, because I'm also I'm representing diversity in Scandinavia as well, and I'm still white person, which also feel actually my whiteness here is not enough whiteness for these white
Sure.
people. Can you imagine that? Then it's
Yeah.
subculture. Then I can imagine, because it's also kind of a lot of tokenism, especially in Scandinavia. I
Sure.
cannot just tell bad things, like, I'm so grateful. It's my approach to life, just to focus on positive things and be grateful. But many times, because I'm Ukrainian, and and I was not born here, so I somehow also have to be like 5 times smarter on that. And I need to confirm all the time that I'm good enough, because if you're Norwegian, like,
Yeah.
I didn't understand when I moved here. I had still my Ukrainian second name, surname, and when I applied after this huge career and experience Ukraine about job here, I never get even one answer. And then they told me, Valeria, you're crazy. You have to change your name, surname, and your email, because nobody will open, because you are not good enough. You're from Ukraine. What? So yes, it's huge. And for me, that's actually was my start, like advocating. That's why it's my passion now. It's my second master degree and now PhD, because like you and me saying, I show them white blind thinking, I call it, right? Because we have also this these guys, like it's here, so it's like, white guys, they go to one school, right, economical school, and we call them white collars. And of course, when they establish board system, and their board members, oh, I know this guy, he's my friend, and there's 6 of them totally like sitting and trying to figure out about global challenges to this multicultural concern. I was like, are you kidding me?
Yeah.
How actually it's even not logically. If
Yeah.
if your production, if your consumers also different, how can you actually not understand that at least to satisfy another customer, me, you have no idea what I need. You need somebody like me sitting close to
Exactly.
you, right?
Exactly.
Even for business perspective, you should understand that.
Yeah.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Now, yeah, thank you so much. I would like now to smoothly go to my very lately big subject, because like I mentioned in the beginning already that I'm neurodivergent. I have no neurodivergence. I have OCD, right? But now it's kind of also popular to joke a little bit. Sometimes, oh, I have OCD about that and about that, but actually I do have that. And I would wish nobody could actually experience what actually OCD with
Yeah.
intrusive thoughts. Sometimes they are so intense, sometimes, and mine sometimes actually can be suicidal. And after the war broke out, my parents, they were in Kherson, and 6 weeks the city was occupied. It was not connection with them, and all that, of course, impact my health.
Of
And I have
course.
special kids, which I had to maintain somehow between them, because they started getting panic attacks here. So it was a lot, but I postponed to take care of myself. And last August, I just broke down, and it was so bad. My OCD just became so severe. So I just took my car, drove to the medical institution, said, now, I'm a responsible mother. I cannot stay at home. I have to be here now. I need help,
Yeah.
professional help. That's
Good for
why I
you.
started this podcast. And I think it's so important, especially now in this situation, political situation. Like you said, we wake up, especially you guys, Americans, you never know what kind of role you're wake up in now. What
Yeah.
you press the button, you never know actually what kind of news will pop up, right? And
I
all
look at
that.
my phone first thing in the morning, and the first thing I'm looking for is Trump dead?
Yeah. And the last thing before you go to sleep, you like manifestation on that, right?
Exactly.
Yes. And for me, it's like about Putin, yes, and
Yeah,
maybe they should
exactly.
call each other.
Yeah.
So, but I actually wanted to talk about this subject because now I'm kind of I'm this year 45 years lady. I know how many years I already dealt with OCD, and I have this on daily basis tools like meditation, breathing,
Sure.
journaling, a lot of things. But I look at these teenagers, which they are bumped of all these resources, social media and everything. Poor kids. And mental health, it's critical now. It's still taboo, it's still stigmatization, it's still me and them. Like,
Yeah.
I experienced so many times still, like, oh, you mental, okay. I think it's more and more common now to talk about OCD, ADHD, ADD, all this
Yeah.
spectrum stuff,
It's
right?
much easier to talk about mental health now. Yeah.
Yeah. But still, we know that uh, so many, especially now in America, if you cut all these resources, first of all, it goes to identification and diagnosis, and this is the actually the most important where everything starts, right?
Yeah.
So tell me your then opinion. What then actually we can approach? What shall we do with this? Because 30% of population, identified population, has neurodivergence, and we if we don't identify it, we don't have diagnosis, we don't have access to service and medical care. Then it's 80% more depression, 60% more suicidal.
Yeah. Yeah.
Maybe,
It's an interesting challenge to Western societies right now in how to deal with the rise of neurodivergence. I don't have any question that autism has been around forever. We just didn't know what to call it.
yeah,
And we didn't get to see it in day-to-day society because those kids were probably chained to a radiator in a psychiatric hospital someplace, and they
yeah,
were kept from sight. Um, my nephew Sam is severely autistic. Like, if a spectrum is 1 to 10, Sam is 12. He is not here among us at all. He is someplace else in
yeah,
his own consciousness. He'll never be a functioning member of society. He's probably going to be a ward of the state his whole life. And, the experience with him as an extreme, and then my daughters both having a touch of OCD and some ADHD as well, and knowing myself as having a raging case of ADHD.
mm-hmm,
And we just didn't know what to call it when I
mm-hmm,
was a kid. And so we learn as individuals, and then I think we're learning as a society how you accommodate people with different abilities and with different perceptions of the world in that way. Um, I had people who worked for me who had to work at home. They could not travel, and those were folks that we would shape a job for so that they were doing data analysis or analytics for several teams in our company so that they wouldn't have to travel, because it just wasn't in them as a neurodivergent person to be able to get onto a flying tube of metal. They couldn't do it,
mm-hmm,
and they often just frankly had difficulty even leaving the house.
mm-hmm.
Um, and we just said, that's fine. We'll send the work to you, and we'll make it work because your work is amazing. And so you learn that within the spectrum, there are steps to take to accommodate people, and that when they get to the extremes of that spectrum, like my nephew,
Yeah,
that then the first rule has to be to protect and nurture those folks who can't protect or nurture themselves.
yeah,
Um, but I think it really does speak to what we're seeing in the popular culture as well, that there's such broad acceptance now of neurodivergent people. I mean, I think we went from Rain Man to now TV shows that feature autistic doctors as the hero.
Yeah.
And I think that's a wonderful bit of societal progress that's reflected there, is that people's whose brains function differently, not worse, but differently than ours do, definitely have a lot to contribute as long as we can make the appropriate accommodations for them. And I've always worked that way, and I'm glad to see that the rest of society is coming around to it as well now.
Wow, what a great perspective! I'm so proud of you that you actually was one of them, and then it makes you a role model, and it always gives ripple effect that you already then, while working, understood that sometimes, mostly in this neurotype typical society, we kind of issues that have to be fixed all the time. But no, sometimes it's like you said, just accommodation is just not that much. Actually, we don't need to fix. But like you said, if you just fix a little bit, that because relationship interactions, it's always the street with two ways. We have, but society still like, okay, it's all, but still like we have to be fixed. We have to be, we are broken and we have to be fixed. But no, it's true. Like, people with all these special different wirings in brain has so many strengths that neurotypical people don't have, like patterns, like about analytic and statistic, all that. They can recognize these partners that people never actually put even attention to, this special small stuff which actually essential, right, for medical research, for all this. Actually, who is behind all this greatest invention, who propelled the society? It's people who really they're sitting days and days. And we know people with ADHD, if they really, and other neurodivergence, where they find the subject, they're really passion calling, they can sit hours with this focus and hours, right? Because it's amazing. So we need more and more just speak boldly with our kids and teenagers. Like, I can mention when I was put in this, I drove myself. They saw it. My kids, they soon 16 years old. I am very proud of myself. They knew everything. They knew. And they came and visit me, like, daily bus is called, and they knew it was openly. I thought, Mom, she has that and that and that. And you see, it is the way how to helpfully treat this this special condition, because we all experience problems, especially now. And it's okay to not be okay all the time, because the social media now with all these filters and masks and it's not true. It doesn't function like that at all, right?
Yeah, exactly.
So I think like we need more authenticity, and I actually happy also to experience that teenagers, they're craving more authenticity because they are born now. They never experienced that authenticity which we did, and they touch all this digital AI, everything so sparkling, so oh my god, it's so beautiful. Life is not like that,
right?
Okay, I understand. You and me, we could see. Oh my God, we need much more time, hopefully. And soon I'm moving to actually US, because I would like to be a part of the neurodivergency project at Stanford. And I was in touch with Professor Lawrence Funk. His son is autistic as well. And it's quite a new project, just 3 years old. So for you, who is into healthcare system, can be also very interesting, because they are kind of they want to have also researchers like me, because I am probably one of the first who actually making the neurodiversity part of PhD research, and I am myself. So I approached them. I said, look at me, I can be your experienced rabbit, because I'm basically myself. I'm out of the mental hospital, and I'm studying that how to help me and people who live with me, right? It's so important. We always forget people who actually interact. So, okay, thank you so much. Before we wrapping up, yes, I'm always starting with I do believe in magic still. I love that. idea we have to be anyway child all our lives at the certain extent, because otherwise life is so difficult to deal with. So we need to remember that inside we have our inner child. And children, they always believe in magic and fairy tales, right? No
Right.
matter. This is the beauty, and that's why we love Christmas still, right? Christmas, we love that. And I
Right.
do even sometimes, and okay, did Maros. And this tough little beauty I bought in Morocco in December, she helps me so much. She always here and watching me because I'm talking too much. And sometimes she's like, Valeria, cut out. This is not your show. You are just host. So anyway, the fairy tale, right?
Yes. Three wishes.
Yes, yeah, but a little bit conservative approach, because she wants to help as many people as possible. She is very tough, but she can grant just one wish.
Just one wish.
Yeah, so now it's your turn to make to keep her busy today. What she should work with.
So what would be my one wish?
Yeah, anything pops now
Man,
after
I sure would love to eliminate poverty on this planet.
yeah.
And you know what? A guy like Elon Musk could do it like that, and he hasn't. And it just makes you wonder why. There
Yeah.
isn't a single hospital or a library or a school with his name that he's funded. How do you get to be the richest man on earth and not give a penny of it away to reduce other people's suffering or to lift people up? It's astounding to me. So it's like we have examples everywhere right now of what not to do to be a good human, and I think it makes it easier. So yeah, if we could get rid of world poverty, that would be my wish.
It's so beautiful and it's so touching. I'm of course joined because poverty, and I even don't want to touch the subject of the war now in mine and yours country, which really how many billions we spread in the bombs every single day that we
Yeah,
could give, like you said, eliminate poverty. Is
yeah,
it nonsense that how the most scary actually creatures, it's not animal, it's us.
yeah.
We are not privileged to call us
No,
animals.
but that's why we need more diversity.
Exactly, that's why we need, and we have to. I'm so happy you been together with me. We are so aligned. I can
Thank
just
you,
imagine
Valeria. Yeah,
we
this was a pleasure.
and advocate, and I'm so great that you have been doing that and you've been done, and you're great model, not just for your kids but for community, society. I'm so privileged to have met you, and
Thank
one
you,
day
my friend.
probably I will meet you at some stage, because I became recently also among the public speakers, so maybe we can share the stage and do
Well,
even
that would be
more.
lovely. Let's do that sometime.
Yeah, let's do that sometimes, like really. Then I can just imagine, because you and me, I can see now we don't have this shyness, modesty, because
No,
really
no, no,
life is
no.
too short, and we know, like you and
Exactly.
me, I'm talking kind of, but I'm also a very big doer. From very little age, I understood I want to make change in this world, and that's why I have adopted two kids with special needs. And this is was my dream from, I don't know, when I was 10 years old probably, and I did it. And I know everybody, they want to do
Yeah,
little bit,
yeah,
so we
exactly.
could change the whole world. So
Yeah.
thank you so much. I wish
Thank
you
you,
first
Valeria,
of all very good health to you, to your family, because this
and
is
to
the
you. And
important.
Slava Ukraini.
I'm Slava. This is the best, actually, closing remark we can have, right?
Exactly. Thank
Yes,
you,
thank you.
sister.
Thank you. Bye bye.
Appreciate it. Thank you again for
Bless
having me.
you.
Okay.
Bless you, John. Thank you
Bye
for
bye.
bye.